much. So it is a committee decision. I mean, I'm a very good child. I listen to my committee members. They tell me, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. A very good morning, Professor Majola. And as I said, are wide awake, and they will be asking you questions after that. And once more, we do apologize, sir. Thank you. Over to you, Professor Majola.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity that you've given me to come and appear before you. I do not think that it is necessary to apologize because we're all in this thing trying to build our democracy, and so I have no problem staying until this time. My name is Bongani Majola. I was born and grew up in KwaZulu-Natal. I attended school there and obtained legal qualifications at the University of Zululand, and also got a legal qualification from the Havard Law School in the USA. I have done quite a bit of diverse types of work. I started in the public service, in the administration, in the public administration, where I was doing things like, working in the revenue office, in population registration, in labor matters, and in land affairs, and so on. But because I was studying at the same time and progressing with my studies, I got promoted to prosecutor at some stage, and subsequently to the position of magistrate. In 1979, I was to be taken by the University of Zululand to teach law students, and I later worked at the University of the North and the University of Botswana, which is now the Northwest, and then the University of Limpopo, where I had progressed up to professor and dean of the law faculty. While in Zululand, I also trained prosecutors, both theoretically and then practically. We used to take them to the Umlazi Magistrates Court, where we would preside over cases and train prosecutors. I have also been very frequently invited by judges, both in the Northwest and in Limpopo, to sit as an assessor, so I have that experience also. Recently, I have been at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, where I was the deputy chief prosecutor prosecuting international crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. On the job of the public prosecutor, my understanding is that, of course, it's one of the Chapter 9 institutions that strengthen constitutional democracy. It facilitates good government by uprooting corruption, prejudice, impropriety, abuse of power in state affairs. It has been described as the last defense against oppressive bureaucracy and malfeasance. The purpose of the purpose of the Office of the Public Protector, of course, is also to investigate allegations of conduct that results in impropriety or prejudice. And the public protector is required to be proactive in this regard, in the sense that he or she must investigate both the matters that are reported and those that the public protector on his or her own comes across, and is required to be very open-minded in doing the investigation, and not merely to take the say-so of the officials in the public service, but must satisfy himself or herself that the truth has been investigated and discovered. You know, whether the report comes back saying there was some wrongdoing or there was no wrongdoing. The public protector, of course, is accountable to the National Assembly and has to periodically report to the National Assembly. Occasionally, when the public protector investigates and finds wrongdoing, they have an option either to mediate or conciliate, or even take remedial action, which can sometimes be binding on those against whom it is taken. And in order to do this, the public protector has got wide powers in terms of what the public protector can do, can call people to appear before him or her, to give information, to submit documents, etc., etc. And also, the public protector is not limited in terms of the level of officials that he or she can investigate. He can go as high as possible in the public service. And for this reason, the public protector then is clothed with powers to perform his or her duties in an impartial manner, independently, but without fear, favor, or prejudice, because also it is understood that the public protector will investigate people who are very senior, will investigate matters that are very sensitive, but also will make findings that are adverse against those people. And we see that the term of office of the public protector is a fixed term which is not renewable, so as to remove any incentive on the public protector to be tempted. What is important as far as I'm concerned also is that because the public protector is there to assist the people, the public protector has to be accessible as much as possible and listen to the issues that are brought before him or her by the public and take the necessary action. The moral values that help me make my decisions, I could briefly just say that, you know, I have grown up to understand the importance of living for yourself, but also living for the other, because when you live as a lone wolf, there is so much you can do, but if you live for other people, there is a lot more. I worked in this regard at the Legal Resources Center, where we were much concerned about the plight of the underprivileged or the people who could not help themselves when their rights were violated, and who were too poor also to go to the expensive court systems that we have. I have served on boards that promote that kind of work, for example, the Open Society Foundations. I've been to, even outside the country, to Senegal, to try and spread this kind of work that looks at other people. In Arusha, for example, I found there that there was a problem with schoolgirls who had to run long distances to look for water while the boys were sitting in class and attending classes. And we started what is called the Arusha Spouses Association, in terms of which we spoke to our colleagues and asked them to donate money on a regular basis so as to dig boreholes at schools and in the vicinity of schools. And we built many boreholes. And in that way, we assisted, at least in the Arusha area, we assisted a lot of schoolgirls to stay in class because the water was freely available. I also respect other people's property. If it's not mine, I don't take. I have worked, for example, in the revenue office, as I said, we were handling lots of money. And I had never suffered a loss or being accused of having misplaced or misused the money. In the last 3 years in the United Nations, I was delegated by the Secretary General to handle the resources of the tribunal, and per year it would amount to not less than 1.2 billion rand. And I handled that without shortages, without losses, and so on. The member states were, when we closed the tribunal in December, were quite appreciative, not only of the work that we've done, but also of the fact that we did not go back to them from time to time saying that money is lost or something. I am the person who never makes a promise if I don't intend to keep it. I believe in keeping my word. I do things on time. In my office, for example, I usually arrive before the staff comes, and I do my work, and I usually leave after the staff has left. Partly because I believe that if I would like people to work, I'd like to set an example that, you know, every minute counts, and therefore that we should work together. I have in the United Nations had the opportunity of being faced with difficult situations of managing diverse or teams with diverse cultural backgrounds, which is very difficult because people come as professionals from all corners of the world, and each one wants to say, I know, and one has to harness this energy and drive it towards achieving the goals that have been stated. And I think that we were successful in that regard to a very large extent. If I believe that something is right, I will do it. If I believe that something is not right, if there is an injustice, I do not hesitate to act. I was involved in the treatment action campaign, and I got a lot of flack from many quarters for doing that. But I was convinced that it was the right thing to do, even though it came with what it came with. At the University of Limpopo, we had a strange situation after the release of Tata Mandela and the beginning of the negotiations, that the university started suspending lecturers without a hearing. We had disciplinary codes and what have you. People stayed on suspension for 18 months, for 2 years, and so on, and the university was refusing to do this. So I took action and said, you know, while you know, you may have a right to suspend people, but at least give them an opportunity to answer to any charges you have against them, and not simply just leave them in limbo. The council was to appoint a committee at a later stage, and the committee came out very strongly that it had been wrong. In the United Nations, I've had similar situations where I've become quite unpopular because the General Assembly says to us, this is too expensive for us, and we should not spend UN money on it. And you get people more senior than you coming to you saying, I want this, I want that, and you've got to do it. And I had the courage to say, but the rules and the General Assembly have said we cannot do this, and I wouldn't be able to do it. If you would like to do it, write to the Secretary General and get his approval to do that. Why do I believe that I'm the right candidate? I believe that I meet all the statutory requirements, and I come with experience, wide experience, both legal experience and administrative and management experience. I've held senior positions in South Africa as Dean, as I've already said, as National Director of the Legal Resources Center, as Professor, and I've had senior positions in the United Nations. I started as the Deputy Chief Prosecutor, and after doing my work, the UN had no hesitation to promote me to the level of Assistant Secretary General when the incumbent left at that time. I worked also, as I already said, with multicultural teams, and I believe this is useful because the Office of the Public Prosecutor needs people to work together so that they can do as much as they can when they are cooperating together and so on, and it's one of the things that I can bring. I have learned to delegate and also to manage performance of those people to whom I delegate, and to achieve the objectives that you are required to achieve. When I took over, I was told by the General Assembly and the Security Council that we had to definitely close the tribunal by not later than December 2015. And I was told that I had to downsize while we were still having cases that were going on, and to make sure that we are able to finish. And I'm pleased to say that the last case was finished on the 14th of December, and we were able to close, having archived the records and done all the other things that we could do. At the ICTR, and when I was a prosecutor, when I sat as an assessor, when I sat on the bench, I dealt with facts, analyzing facts, weighing them, coming to conclusions and writing reports. And so I think that experience, which spans over a long period of time, would be useful if I came to this position. I recall that we also at one stage worked with Johan Gauci on the Foul Triangle Technicon when there were problems there, and we did a report that virtually put an end to the problem at the time. I have handled sensitive information.
Yes. If you could move towards winding up, you have 1 more minute.
Yes, Honorable Chairperson. I say I've handled very sensitive information in the tribunal relating to witnesses, relating to investigations, because we were investigating, among other things, members of the sitting government and so on, and we had informants and witnesses killed and so on, and I handled that and without any problem. So I believe that I have the integrity and the temperament. I've never been convicted of an offense or disciplined or dismissed from employment. And as I've said, I have held senior positions. So what do I bring? What would I bring to the job? Of course, my investigation and reporting skills, my leadership and management experience at senior levels, nationally and internationally, experience in building teams and leading teams and managing their performance. I regard myself as independent. I've always been independent, and I am impartial. I bring diplomatic skills from the international arena that has enabled me to communicate with people at most senior levels. I've spoken, I've visited countries and spoken with presidents, with prime ministers, with cabinet ministers, and so on. I therefore think that I do have what it takes to do this job, and I would be at the service of the committee and the country should you decide that I should make myself available. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. I can see Honorable Mwabe that side has already raised his hand. Do I have another person? Honorable Swart, Honorable Koronov, Honorable Maisela, Honorable Bongo. That's in that order, please. Okay, Honorable Mwabe.
Thank you, Chairperson. Sibingelele Baba Macungwana. I have only two questions for you. Firstly is, one would like to know in your own view, what are the current challenges facing the Office of the Public Protector? And how can those challenges be addressed? Say you get appointed, what will be your strategies to address those problems? Two, in your CV, it appears that your last employment was in December 2015. Does this mean are you currently unemployed? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and again, a very impressive CV. I wanted to ask Mr. Majola about your understanding of the Public Protector's independence and what your thoughts were before the Constitutional Court judgment, which found that the remedial findings are binding. And if I heard you correctly, when you gave your introduction, you seemed to, I might have misheard you there, but what were your views before that? Did you hold that they were binding? Secondly, if you are appointed to the position of Public Protector, now you've had experiences at the UN and in various other organizations, but the issue relating to funding and the funding problems at the Public Protector, how would you address that, given that following the Constitutional Court judgment, there will be a number of review applications that will be brought by deep pocket state departments against the Public Protector? How would you deal with that issue? And then lastly, in your experience at the UN, you had interactions with the Secretary General and other instances, but what about Parliament? I'm trying to give in, because you will need to deal extensively with Parliament as the Public Protector. How do you see that relationship between the Public Protector, which is an independent Chapter 9 institution, but it is dependent on Parliament appropriating funds and needs to account to Parliament? How do you see that relationship of independence? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Those were very good questions, Honorable Swart.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson. Professor, I see that you are a former member of the Johannesburg Bar. Can you give me indication whether you've practiced as an advocate while you were a member? And if so, for how long? And then your employment with the United Nations. It was since 2003 until today, or until the end of December. Where were you based? Has it meant that you were outside South Africa for since 2003 and 2015? Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Dr. Maisela.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask the professor to, as a man of experience who has seen the world and the injustices that are visited on the so-called poor or underprivileged or underdeveloped people, depending on who's calling them what. How does his experiences resonate with what he wants to do here at home and the people here at home? Do we still have the so-called underprivileged people in South Africa or underdeveloped? And how does he intend to solve these people as a protector of what? The public against what? Against the government or against poverty or against pestilence? You must be defending people against something. I mean, if their government is oppressing them or suppressing them, then you can't take an opkir and defend them, or just stand there and say, no, the government is abusing power. There are a lot of factors that are involved here, but we just treat things as simplistically as we can because we have agendas, and we say we don't have agendas and we are not biased. We still have to see some sort of miraculous people somewhere in the world who are not biased. They are angels, maybe. But as far as you still have the necessary weaknesses and frails of human beings, just pray and hope that you are inspired enough not to be very much biased. So it is mind-boggling, but let's limit ourselves to our shores, because maybe at least we can still sit here and talk about it, and without bringing the United Nations to come in and chaperone us while we are ill-treating our own people. It is those who own the means of production who have power. You know, power is the ability to make people to do what they would otherwise not want to do. It's not and there are different ways of exercising this power through influence, coercion, or maybe bribery or whatever. So you cannot say you have power if you don't have resources. So who owns the resources? Why do we talk about people who don't own resources, that they're having power that they are misusing, while they are really working to defend the powers which is owned by the owners of the means of production or the owners of resources? Maybe we shouldn't go into that one. Let's just be simplistic and say, yeah, maybe we are going to have a public protector who will defend our people against the misuse of power. And this misuse of power is corruption. It boils down to corruption, right? So as a professor, maybe you can unbundle this and tell us what do you intend to do, why you want to intend to do something that is not doable. You are just merely going to be, I don't know, even a drop in an ocean, or trying to be like King Canute and tell the waves to go away, or
Honorable Dr. Maisela.
it is very problematic to understand what it is.
Honorable member.
Thank you.
You were finishing your question, because I wanted you to make sure that your question, is comprehensible. Otherwise, it's going to end up being confusing. I wanted to protect.
Thank you, ma'am.
the
I think the
professor.
Prof understands.
Okay, the
what I'm
professor
trying
seems
to
to
say.
understand you. Okay, no, that's fine. Thank
here
you.
we are. You have a vast experience outside there, and you have seen what it means to really misuse power, abuse power. And some people come and help to cause this conflict and say they are going to help to stop it.
Honorable Dr. Maisela, you had already finished asking your questions. I'm sorry for having interrupted because it appears as though I gave you another license to speak again. Honorable Bongo,
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Good morning, Prof. I want to try to keep it short. It will appear that you were nominated for the position of the Public Protector in 2002, and you declined the nomination. So I would want to know what has made you now think that you must accept the nomination this time. It's 2016, many, many years later. And then secondly, I would want your view. You know, there's this United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. There's a widespread perception in South Africa that these international tribunals are just only meant to sabotage the leaders in Africa. And they are only meant to bring a stereotype from the West. So I want you to comment, and comment in line with or share a view about the Omar al-Bashir debacle that had happened. I think it will be important. And I'm also interested to know whether are you still full-time employed with that tribunal or what? If yes, would you leave the tribunal for this job? Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Professor, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of this distinguished committee. Perhaps I should start with the last question. In 2002, I was approached to accept the nomination as a public protector, but at that time, I had already signed an acceptance of employment, which His Excellency Kofi Annan had sent me to join the ICTR as the Deputy Chief Prosecutor, because there was nobody in Arusha at the time, because the two tribunals were sharing a prosecutor and work was being neglected in Arusha, and I was required to leave immediately. I recall that I had indicated to the two people who had called to nominate me that I had the problem that it would be difficult for me, having promised the UN Secretary General in writing that I would be going up there. The position had been vacant for 2.5 years, to then withdraw. That is on that basis that it happened. The ICTR, I would like Honorable Member to say that the ICTR is different from the ICC. We remember that the ICTR was established upon the request of the Rwandan government, even though when the final voting was done, Rwanda voted against it for different reasons, but Rwanda had wanted that. And it had a much more curtailed mandate much more circumscribed mandate than the ICC. It was merely to prosecute those that were holding the highest responsibility for the Rwandan genocide, not of 1959, but the one of 1994. And so it differs, it doesn't fall within the model of tribunals that can be said to be targeting African leaders, because it simply just focused on that. At the moment, I am not employed because we completed the mandate of the tribunal in December and we closed down, we did liquidation of the tribunal up to July. And so I am back. At the moment, I've been requested by the Executive Dean at VETS to assist them because somebody is gone on sabbatical on a temporary basis to teach one law course. Honorable Member, I did hear the question about the Omar al-Bashir case. I am not fully informed about that case to be able to comment. I do not know whether the question wants me to explain whether or not South Africa should have arrested al-Bashir or should not have arrested al-Bashir. South Africa is a very well-respected member of the United Nations, and when it signs instruments, international instruments, usually it intends to deal with those. But the problem is that there is also the issue of immunity, which I think that needs to be worked out as to where it stands vis-a-vis the obligations that the country has entered into. So I'm sorry, maybe that is as far as I can go with that question, Honorable Member. And then there was the question of the underprivileged and so on from Dr. Maisela. I would like to apologize, Honorable Member, for using terms loosely. My use of the word underprivileged was not intended to connote the situation that prevailed under apartheid, but it was to connote a situation where some people they have less power than others because, as you rightly say, sometimes they do not have resources. And it is not, in my understanding, to protect them against the government. It is to protect them against maladministration, against corruption, against abuse of power, and so on. I am a South African and I grew up here, and I know that there have been instances where people have been told, listen, you are number so-and-so on the housing list, and then later they are told, no, now you are number further down the line, and so on. It may be the abuse of power, it may be corruption and so on, but the public protector is intended to ensure that the administration works accordingly, properly, so that when we get those cases of people who cannot go to court because they don't have money, and therefore they have no other resort except this one, so that then they can then go to that resort, and this resort should then carefully investigate, weigh up the facts, and come to the assistance of that person. Whether or not it is a drop in the ocean, I do not think it is a drop in the ocean, because coupled with the publicity that comes with the work of the public protector, it has an impact. I think people are increasingly getting to know that if they do certain things, there may be consequences. If a person leaves employment, for example, say in the army, in the police, and they do not quickly process his papers, and he loses his house while there is money coming, they have to know that, you know, they've got to do things in time and so on, so as to make sure that the system works properly. It is there to strengthen the constitutional democracy, not to supplant it. I think that the public protector's work is not to take over the work of the government, the work of parliament, the work of the executive. It is to assist these institutions so that what they want to see happening actually does happen. You know, it may be a slow process, but I think that as we go on, people will catch on, and more people will know that if I do this, these are the consequences, and therefore I should not do that. The honorable member, Honorable Korenhoff, yes, I joined the bar, but at the time I was still at the Legal Resources Center, so I did not directly practice. And when I resigned from the Legal Resources Center towards the end of 2002, it was with the aim of going to the bar. Unfortunately, then the Honorable Kofi Annan came and said, we need your services in Arusha urgently. We have been looking for an African for a long time. It's 2 years, and what have you, can you go? And I felt that I should go and make a contribution there. While I was working at the Legal Resources Center, it is based in Arusha in Tanzania. I was based in Arusha in Tanzania. Then there is a question from the Honorable Swart on the independence of the public protector. My sense is that the independence we are talking about here is functional independence. In other words, that the public protector should not be interfered with when she does or he does his investigations and takes his or her decisions. However, we are living in an environment, in a system of accountability in this country. And so the public protector cannot just be loose and not be accountable anywhere, because the public protector is also using public finances. And so the Constitution requires the public protector to report occasionally, at least once a year, to the people that approve the resources that the public protector is using. The question also was whether the decisions of the public protector were binding before the Constitutional Court case. Unfortunately for me, because I was away, I was never part of this debate, and I never formed a view. In fact, I didn't, until I came back, I didn't hear. But my preliminary thinking was that, you know, we are trying to help people, and therefore the public protector is given certain remedial actions or powers, and that if those powers mean nothing, then the people that are intended to be assisted would not get the assistance that we intend them to get. There was the question of the funding of the Office of the Public Protector. One of the things I didn't mention is that when I was at the Legal Resources Center, I also did a lot of fundraising. So if I am the public protector, I would go back to some of the foundations that I had established good rapport with, and explain the case of the South African democracy that is growing and needs strengthening, and explain the developments in the country with regard to the issues of the role, the functions, the powers of the public protector. And I suspect that there will be governments that would be willing to make available some funding for that purpose. Whether such funding would be sufficient, I do not know. It is very difficult because South Africa is now seen as the best, or one of the best in the continent. And while I was still doing fundraising here, sometimes I would knock at doors and be told, listen, but you guys are now free, you don't need us. However, I am pleased to see, as I came back, that there are still funds that are being made available to South Africa. But I think that would be one of the options. The other options, of course, I think Parliament would have also to look at how the funding is developed. What are the current challenges that the public protector is facing? Of course, one of the obvious ones is this, that since the Constitutional Court decision, it is now clear that there may be an increase in litigation relating to the decisions of the public protector, and therefore that the work of the public protector may occasion additional costs. How that would be sorted out is to look for funding. But I think also what I think are some of the challenges that the public protector is facing is that there is just an overwhelming number of people that need this assistance. And I do not know whether there will ever be sufficient resources to enable providing this assistance in some kind of bulk basis so that more people get assisted. I believe that one of the things that would need to continue to be done is to report and publicize some of the reports of the public protector, so that there is a multiplying effect on some of the cases that are done. I believe that this is going to be an ongoing problem that cannot be eliminated immediately. Honorable members, I do not know whether there is there is one question whether I'm still working. I think I did answer that we closed the tribunal, and that otherwise I'm not employed. I'm temporarily helping the law school at Wits.
Thank you. Honorable Shivambu, is there any other member who wants to speak? Okay, I'll speak after him, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, before you took employment with the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, you were an admin clerk. You were an admin clerk between 1971 and 1974. That is what your CV says. And then a prosecutor between 1975 and 1977. District Court Magistrate, 1997 to 1979. Magistrate, 1979 to 1982. Lecturer between 1982 and 1998. But it looks like you were working on the part, you were working for the state. And that state was the apartheid state. So you were responsible for prosecuting our people on behalf of the apartheid state. Is that what we were doing, like in those years where you were working on the state, like you've got qualifications in law, you were not an advocate to defend our people who were being arrested wrongly for some sick laws and some petty crimes, some of which were defined around the racial identity. And so throughout, you were working for apartheid state. When it's time to serve our people, you go to the UN. We understand, we appreciate that they nominated to be a public protector, and then you said, I'm not available. I'm going to deal with the tribunal in the UN. because His Excellency Kofi Annan has appointed you. And then you come here and then you say, we must appoint you as a public protector. Why should we trust you? Why should we trust a person who was working on the side of the apartheid state for so many years, and possibly even teaching the apartheid laws in university? I want to be satisfied before we even take a decision on how do we justify to the people of South Africa that we're going to appoint someone who was on the side of the state, an apartheid state for so many years, and now wants to be a public protector. The other issue which I want you to speak to is accessibility of the public protector. How do we get the people of Den Hausa, of Emadlangen, of Madadin, where you are a prosecutor, to have quicker access to the public protector's office? Now it's 20 offices or less across the country. How do we get to expand that? And if we expand it, where is the money going to come from? The public protector incumbent was struggling with the issue of funding, and she was already beginning to propose some ways of how do we fund and sustain the public protector's office. What are your ideas on concrete funding mechanisms to make sure that the public protector's office is accessible to all the people? And I want to ask for your opinion on the centralized procurement system, which National Treasury is in the process of implementing through the Chief Procurement Officer. Do you think that is a necessary intervention to help our people? Lastly, what is your view on a sitting president who is found to have violated the Constitution? Do you think he must remain as a president? The Constitutional Court says that he is a president who has violated the Constitution by defying the remedial action of the public protector. What is your view on him? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. And I want to remind you that this is a multi-party committee, and we have different perspectives of asking questions. Prof, one of the reasons why you were shortlisted is the fact that you have this international experience as well, among other factors that we considered. Now, Prof, I just wanted you, it's a principle that is lingering all the time when we are engaging on issues of justice vis-a-vis regional harmonization and understanding of the African geopolitical dynamics. I wanted to ask the professor if he has actually applied his mind on issues where sometimes you will find that there is an aspect, and you are correct, you are saying South Africa is a signatory to the United Nations. And there is a justice and the obligations that have to deal with that. But at the same time, South Africa is also in a situation where you don't want to be considered in the continent as the big brother in the continent. When you have and maybe you are hosting a head of state, and I want to remove it from Omar Abashir this matter, but I just want you to understand the kind of challenges that you have. And let's contextualize it within all the xenophobic incidences that you've had. Because you also, it's not just about just the justice element only, But you also don't want as South Africa to be seen to be, you know, furthering or to be adopting the USA kind of attitude. If you remember the concept of Gaddafi of the United States of Africa. So I'm saying we don't want to be seen as South Africa assuming that a status in the continent. So if you can comment on those, because I think they are actually very, very important, and it would be nice to hear your perspective. And I actually respect the role that you've played in Rwanda. I think it was a very necessary one, and I do think that, notwithstanding what are the other questions that we were asked, I do believe that, you know, having served in a tribunal like that where such human atrocities were committed, it's very good for this country and for social cohesion. That experience is going to be important going forward. And finally, Prof, I just wanted you to comment about balancing high-profile cases versus the cases of ordinary citizens. And I must say that do support the idea of focusing on high-profile cases as well, because we can't neglect high-profile cases. At the end of the day, leaders, they do set the agenda or define the moral value system to a very large extent of a given country. I'm just giving that to you, Prof, and if you could, when you are answering, you can also be summarizing your things. There are questions that were asked by Honorable Shivambu, and if when in your questions, you can also be trying to leaving us with the message that you think is important for us to remember, or for you as the prospective public protector. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. The International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, as I already said, was tasked with a narrowly circumscribed mandate, which was only to prosecute those who bore the highest responsibility for the genocide of 1994 in Rwanda. Its mandate, I may say, did not go on to the issues affecting the whole of Africa. And in that regard, I do not bring any practical experience that I can put on the table with regard to the rest of Africa. We have been watching from the sidelines as it is, if I may say so. But I do understand the issue of the so-called conflict of interests. On the one hand, the interest to be part of the larger global community, and without trampling the relationship that are regional and sustaining to the country. My sense is that all these relationships were created by certain instruments, and that where there is this kind of conflict, we cannot let both instruments to live and keep on creating the clash. We could do an interpretation that, listen, there is sovereignty, there is immunity of the heads of state and so on. The problem with that is that to a larger extent, the world has kind of moved a little bit away from that, in the sense that it has adopted instruments and practices that have said that being the head of state is not an excuse for certain kinds of crimes. And some of the people like Taylor have actually been prosecuted. We in the ICTR prosecuted President Kambanda and so on the basis of that. And my sense is therefore that there may be a need to do more than simply saying this, because there's always going to be a contestation to say this has been done under this rule, and you know, we've prosecuted that, we've charged so and so, and so on. My sense would be perhaps a review of these relationships and see to what extent they could be crafted an accommodation of these rules so that it becomes clearer which trumps which one. Otherwise, we are going to go on and on and on in a vicious discussion of those people who very strongly feel that no, the Rome Statute is there, was signed first, and so on, and therefore that you can destroy whatever you have in terms of the immediate relationships that you have with those people who say, no, but you cannot jettison the regional relationships because they contribute to a greater good for the country and for the continent. That is my view. I apologize that I did not clearly understand the comment about the Rwanda tribunal. You had, Chairperson, you had spoken about the cases, balancing the high-profile cases. My sense, at an international level. Yes.
That one was a separate
Yes.
issue.
Yes.
The Rwandan, I was saying you are bringing that, I think it's relevant. It was a comment, it wasn't a question. But the question to you was around balancing in South Africa as the new public protector. You are going to be confronted with, demands for high-profile cases. They will be coming to your attention. Maybe it's a case of maladministration or corruption or whatever, But at the same time, there will also be other cases that are cases of ordinary citizens that are not necessarily like, the ones that media would probably have the appetite for, to become the celebrity public protector. There is that risk sometimes. Because sometimes you can end up focusing on high-profile cases whilst, not focusing on the cases that affect ordinary citizens. I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear.
Chairperson, thank you very much for that clarification. I do understand, and I recall that I was requested to fill a questionnaire. And in the questionnaire, I did suggest that my own thinking is that we have got a lot of people who are at a lower level, who are in a screaming need for this assistance. And my suggestion was that if I was given this position, I would focus on those cases without neglecting the high-profile cases, because there is a big danger in doing that. Our Constitution promises equality, and we cannot be seen to be saying, okay, these people, yes, we will do their cases, but those we're going to put them aside. My sense is that we have learned lessons from what has happened, and that we should, if we are a country that is serious about going forward, we should see a decrease in high-profile cases that go to the media, because the ordinary people in the street, they look upon us to see what is right and what is wrong. And so those cases cannot therefore be put aside because the ordinary person in the street is going to say, well, if so-and-so can do this and there's not being looked at, you know, it is going to defeat the purpose. But my belief is that, you know, we still have got lots of people, you know, that need assistance, who do not have the means, who need to be met halfway, and that therefore we need to put more emphasis on those. Unfortunately, I have never been in the Office of the Public Protector. I cannot give details as to this and this and this and this, but one of the things that one does when one gets into an institution, one looks at what is there, one draws a strategy plan. You know, once you know this is where I'm going, you then draw your strategy plan and how you're going to implement that strategy. And that was my take into it. When I got to the ICTR in January 2003, on the 11th of February, members of the 5th Committee of the General Assembly visited us, and they were visibly and audibly angry because the tribunal was not doing its work. It had spent so much money and only done 13 cases and hadn't finished all of them. And so we had to come back, we had to get together, sit down and say, what is the problem? Where are we supposed to go? How do we get there? And what have you? We have earned praises even from the Russian Federation, which is largely critical lately because we have done more than they had expected. We have actually finished our work before the ICTY, which started before us, because we planned, we implemented, we monitored, and so on and so on. That would be my answer. On the question of me having worked for the apartheid government, I would plead that yes, it is true that at the time I was the prosecutor, at the time I was the administrative clerk, at the time I was the magistrate, you know, we had the apartheid government. We had this challenge in the sense that in the areas where we lived, people still stole other people's property. People still assaulted other people. People still stole cattle. You know, these things, black people against other black people, and they needed to be prosecuted. We had no jurisdiction over other races in that time. People still transacted business, and they wanted, when they quarreled, they wanted a mechanism to resolve their, what you call, and some would go to the chief's court and would not have satisfaction, and they would then need to go somewhere where their disputes could be settled. The fact that we were under apartheid, unfortunately, did not lend itself to a situation where we would say to the people, yeah, we've been assaulted, sorry, there's nothing we can do. We needed to do something. So we had to do the good with the bad, as far as I'm concerned. And Honorable Member, you would recall that cases of state security and so on would never be brought to a black magistrate. They would be taken across the river to the Newcastle district where they would be charged. And as far as teaching is concerned, today I feel very proud that when I walk in the streets of Pretoria, for example, I meet Judge Raulinga, and he says, good morning, sir. I meet Modise, who is now the advocate at Home Affairs on Sunday, and he presses the huta and he says, you know, I'm now the top advocate at Home Affairs and so on. I meet Judge Mamusebo, who is in Kimberley, who says, BC, what you taught me has made me who I am, and so on. So we did teach within the apartheid universities, but it is what we did that mattered. When I took over as dean, the curriculum was bad. The students were not getting articles. But after I took over as dean, our students got articles. They got articles of clerkship. They got articles in commercial law firms which were previously refusing to look at any black students. So while we were working within that medium, we did the best that we could. But I do admit that it was within the apartheid environment. Now, on what to tell the South African people about employing somebody like me, my sense is, well, I cannot say what, but I think that what we have done, or what I have done, has shown that even under those conditions, I was working towards bettering the lot of our people rather than pushing them into oblivion. So for that reason, I think that what I did then and what I would do now are not in conflict, in the sense that I would still be trying to work towards the benefit of our people. The question about the accessibility, this is a question that is not only unique to South Africa. It is a troubling problem in many places. We had the same problem when we started, not when we started, when I got to Rwanda, as to how we link the work that we were doing with the ordinary villagers in Ruengeri, in Bunya, in Butare, in what you call, people who didn't speak English, people who, some of whom didn't speak what you call. The mandate that we got was that we should not only prosecute these people, but that we should contribute to reconciliation, which meant that we had to reach out to people in Rwanda. And the only way we could do it was to establish one center in each of the 10 provinces, but also then to use technology. We built what was called the Umusanzu centers, which we stocked with books, with electronic facilities to enable people to access that. We partnered with the radio companies in Rwanda. We often flew in certain accredited journalists from time to Arusha to witness what was happening so that they can go back and report to their people in Rwanda. The attitude in the beginning was extremely hostile, but after some time, after this, we got very good welcome and so on. My sense, therefore, is that somebody in Danhauser, you may want to build an office, but also you may want to have some technological means by which a person can log a complaint, and it is picked up in Pretoria or somewhere, and it is acted upon, inquiries are made electronically, or once upon a time somebody then drives down there and so on. So that's just one of my ways of thinking how my learned experiences elsewhere could also be considered, in meeting the challenge. I do not know the full extent of the problem. It may require more, but so far I have seen that the technology has worked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I just wanted to say to you, some of us do not necessarily treat or view people who were lecturers at University of Zululand or Bophuthatswana as synonymous with being sellouts, because we have the evidence of a lot of good progressive lawyers who came out of that environment. Despite all the odds, we were able to get some of the best brains out of those institutions. I thought that on a positive note, I will have to say that. Is there anything, Prof, that you would like to say before you go? Honorable Shivambu, I have just spoken, and right now I am asking Advocate.
If you want to open a debate, let's debate about that. When people
Honorable
were dying, people were
Shivambu,
being
I
killed,
am
people were going
not
to exile.
opening a debate.
But how do you make remarks? You are not. You
I
can't
am
make absolute
making
remarks
a
like that.
comment, Honorable Shivambu. You must learn to accept that when you are presenting a view, it is not gospel truth and it will be challenged
So you should-
properly.
so should
And
you.
if you wanted to take me on this, you
Yes.
can take me on, but right now, I want to give Professor the opportunity to give us his last remarks, if he has any.
Thank you, Chairperson. I actually do not have remarks, except that I am full of appreciation that the committee has stayed until this time to wait to hear what I've got to say. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Members, it's very late, I know, and you are excused, Prof. I'm not sure what is going to be the way forward. Next week, remember, the committees, it's the committee week, and I'm not sure if you would want us to send you something to recommend the dates, or whether you are in a position to decide on when we are going to meet, or are you leaving that to me to obviously, in consultation with you, we can give a few dates and then we can see how many members are available. Is that okay, members?
That's okay, Chair, and I want to congratulate you. We've just sat for 20 hours solidly.
I want to congratulate. First of all, I think it will be so, there is one thing that I need to appreciate. You know, members are rising out of this process. Working with civil society, we've had a brilliant case of the best results that we can get from working with civil society. And in particular, I wanted to thank Corruption Watch for their good work. And I'm sure you are also very happy there that members kept on referring to the work that you did. And I think we can collaborate together. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the committee. Thank you very much for sitting throughout this time. Thank you. I'm hoping that you will have some time to rest. Okay, bye.